Picture this. You're heading somewhere in a car. Maybe you're the driver, or maybe you're just relaxing in the back seat. But there are no signposts along the way. Without clear directions, anyone will start to feel lost, anxious, and might even question if they're on the right path. A language journey can feel just like a road trip. When you're taking a reading or listening test, it's like being a passenger, receiving and interpreting information. But when you're giving a presentation, writing an essay, or speaking in a test, you're in the driver's seat, guiding the message for others. In both cases, having the right signpost helps you stay on track, keeping your audience or reader right there with you. They call it learning, we say it's fun. Welcome to Fun Mandarin 玩中文。大家好， I'm Brian. Signpost language helps connect ideas logically, highlights key points, and effectively summarizes information. Mastering these expressions makes it easier to follow formal speeches and longer text by tracking the speaker's or writer's flow of thought. When it's your turn to give a presentation, speak, or write formally on exams like the IB or GCSE, signpost language keeps your message organized, clear, and professional, making it easier for your audience to stay engaged and follow along. To show you how this works, I'll demonstrate a cooking recipe. Recipes are great examples because they use signpost language naturally for step-by-step instructions and presentations. 大家好，今天要分享的是西红柿炒蛋的做法。在台湾，西红柿又叫番茄，所以这道菜又叫番茄炒蛋。首先要准备的是一个西红柿、一个鸡蛋、一根青葱、适量的盐和一点酱油。第一步，先把一个西红柿对半切，一半切碎，另一半切成大块。青葱切成葱花，把葱白和葱绿分开备用。第二步，在碗里打一个鸡蛋，稍微打散。接下来就可以开火热锅了。锅热以后倒油，把打散的鸡蛋倒入锅里。要特别注意的是，蛋快凝固的时候要先盛出来，然后把火调小。先放入葱白煸香，再放入切碎的西红柿。同时加入一点盐和酱油，接着放入炒好的鸡蛋，再加入大块的西红柿翻炒，最后放入葱花。这道西红柿炒蛋就完成啦。以上就是西红柿炒蛋的做法。总的来说，只要准备好食材，先炒蛋，再炒西红柿，最后一起翻炒，就这么简单。赶快动手试试吧。In every presentation or speech, before jumping into your topic, it's important to greet your audience first. I would say the perfect greeting for any occasion would be 大家好。大家好 is appropriate in both formal and casual settings. But if you're only speaking to just one person, such as in a speaking exam, you can either address the person's title, such as 老师好, or simply greet them with 早上好、下午好、晚上好 depending on the time of the day. After greeting, did you notice how signpost language functions in the presentation? We can group these functions as sites.
What?
After greeting, we move on to the first type of signpost expression, which we use it to set up the topic to the audience and reader. It's like giving them the idea where the destination you're taking them to is. In the presentation, we hear 今天要分享的是西红柿炒蛋的做法。今天要分享的是 means today I'm sharing. Besides using 分享, we can also use 谈谈 or 聊聊. Both refer to talking about certain subject, but 谈谈 sounds more formal, while 聊聊 gives a slightly more casual vibe. For example, 今天要谈谈全球暖化的问题。今天要谈谈全球暖化的问题。Another example, 今天要聊聊我最近的生活。今天要聊聊我最近的生活。We can make it sound even more inviting by saying 今天要和大家一起。今天要和大家一起。We can use different verbs after 一起 in this sentence, such as 做 as in 一起做。一起做 meaning to make or to do together. For example, 今天要和大家一起做巧克力蛋糕。今天要和大家一起做巧克力蛋糕。We can also use 看 to see, to look, as in 一起看。We can also say 今天要带大家来看看。今天要带大家来看看。For example, 今天要带大家来看看世界最大的美术馆。今天要带大家来看看世界最大的美术馆。After letting your audience know where you're heading, it's time to buckle up and hit the road. This means introducing the first point. In the presentation, we hear 首先, which means first of all, when the presenter introduced the ingredients for the recipe. 首先要准备的是 When moving on to the steps for making the dish, the first step we hear 第一步，先把一个西红柿对半切。第一 means first, and 步 literally means step. When giving arguments in writing or speaking, you can use 第一点 or simply say 第一 to introduce the first point. After the first step, guess how to move on to the second step? That's right, simply say 第二步. Likewise, if it's an argument, we would say 第二点 or just 第二. We can also use 接下来. 接下来. It's like saying following that or next. Like we've seen in the presentation. 接下来就可以开火热锅了。In the presentation, you might have also noticed that 接着is also used to indicate sequence. In colloquial Mandarin, we'd also use 然后 to show what comes next. Another way to show sequence is by using 先在, which means first, then. It shows that one action should be completed before the next one. Like in the presentation, 先放入葱白煸香， 再放入切碎的西红柿。Here's another example. 我们先听对话，再做口语练习。我们先听对话，再做口语练习。When we want to say two or more actions are happening at the same time, we can use 同时。Let's look at the example again. 同时加入一点盐。As you can see, these signposts are really helpful to give your audience a clear direction on whether to focus during the presentation. It's like turning the indicator when driving. As a driver, we warn others that we're about to turn, and as passengers, we know the car is going in a new direction. Now, let me give you 3 bonus signposts to add a new point or change direction. Besides using 第二、接着 and 接下来, we can also use 此外、此外、除此之外、除此之外 or 除此以外、除此以外 which means in addition or apart from this. These phrases help add extra information. When you hear or read these, you know another point is coming up. And if you are giving a presentation or doing a speaking or writing test, you can use these signposts to add new points. For example, 我觉得学外语很重要，因为可以开拓我们的视野。此外，也增加职业发展的机会。我觉得学外语很重要，因为可以开拓我们的视野。此外，也增加职业发展的机会。We can also use 另一方面，另一方面 on the other hand, to present an alternative perspective or additional point in a discussion. For example, 吃好睡饱有益健康。另一方面，保持心情愉快也很重要。吃好睡饱有益健康。另一方面，保持心情愉快也很重要。Moving on, the next group of signpost language is to emphasize. In the presentation, we hear 要特别注意的是，蛋快凝固的时候要先盛出来。要特别注意的是 literally translates to what you should pay special attention to is. This phrase highlights a crucial point or detail that requires special focus. We can also say 值得注意的是，值得注意的是 which means it's worth noting that. For example, 手机为现代人的生活带来了很多好处。值得注意的是，过度使用也有负面的影响。手机为现代人的生活带来了很多好处。值得注意的是，过度使用也有负面的影响。If we want to make our points even stronger, the great way to do so is by expanding with examples. There are a few useful expressions for introducing examples like 例如，例如，比如说，比如说 or 举例来说，举例来说。 Continuing with the example about mobile phone use, we could extend the argument like this. 比如说，花太多时间在手机上网，不但浪费时间，而且对眼睛也不好。比如说，花太多时间在手机上网，不但浪费时间，而且对眼睛也不好。So, when we want to give a hint that we're reaching to the end of the presentation, we can use 最后, which means lastly as in the presentation. 最后放入葱花。Then we can conclude with 以上就是, which translates to the above is in English. This phrase is often used to wrap up a statement or list that has just been presented. 以上就是西红柿炒蛋的做法。Other examples. 以上就是我学中文的经验。以上就是我学中文的经验。Here's another example. 以上就是大家要特别注意的事项。以上就是大家要特别注意的事项。It's even better to summarize the information or arguments by using 总的来说。总的来说，总的来说，只要准备好食材，先炒蛋，再炒西红柿，最后一起翻炒，就这么简单。We can also use 总结一下，总结一下 ，or 总之，总之。For example, 总结一下。我们应该留意用手机的时间，这样才能享受它的好处，同时降低它的负面影响。总结一下，我们应该留意用手机的时间，这样才能享受它的好处，同时降低它的负面影响。Another example. 总之，吃好、睡饱、多运动，加上好心情，就会身体健康。总之，吃好、睡饱、多运动，加上好心情，就会身体健康。That's all for today. 总结一下，标示语主要有5大功能。第一，设定主题；第二，提出第一个要点；第三，转换和过渡话题。值得注意的是，我们也可以用标示语强调论点。最后就是总结和结论。以上就是这集的内容，喜欢的话别忘了点赞、留言和分享。谢谢收看 Fun Mandarin 玩中文，我们下次见。